It's just extras. Oh, okay. So it's fine.
Hello, everybody. We'd like to call this meeting of the Library Board of Trustees for the City of Palm Springs to order, please. The time, I believe, is 3 o'clock, though that says 2:59, and we are live on the air. Can we have the roll call, please?
Sure. Harry Courtwright does not appear to be here yet. David Kelly?
Here.
Ed McBride?
Here.
Kathy Wormack?
Here.
And we have a vacancy, so. The agenda was posted on or before March 21st.
Okay. Can we, do we have any changes to the minutes?
I have some questions about the minutes.
Sure.
I think we have two sets of minutes. That's correct?
correct. Right.
We have the February 28th minutes and the March 13th minutes. And the March 13th minutes seems to be a page in length for a 2-hour meeting. And I just wanted to know, because it seems as if, to me, that I suppose if there were motions that were made during the course of the meeting, they would show up on here.
That's
But there
right.
was a lot of public comment, and I don't see that here. And I know we're in a process where we're actually making some decisions about a strategic plan, and I'm just wondering, for accountability purposes as well as being able to follow up on certain things, whether or not those issues are supposed to be reflected in the minutes.
So my response to that is that typically I have two things. Typically, when we do a special meeting, and with any of our minutes, we really elaborate a lot on our minutes, and it's not required. So typically, you just record the actions. If there was a motion and who made the motion and what the vote was. So historically, with special meetings, we just record the action. And the reason why we chose to continue to do that on this special meeting was because our consultants were taking the notes and doing the revisions of the strategic plan, and that is reflected in the strategic plan document, draft document that you all have, the updates on that. So we felt that it was acceptable to just continue to do it in that fashion, since the changes that you all wanted to have made in the strategic plan are in that document, rather than writing all of the opinions. But we do have the notes from it. So.
We also have the draft that you don't see here where the consultants made all of the suggested changes, and we reviewed those, and they matched what we got from feedback. We do have that we could look at if we needed to.
It would have been helpful to get that as well, so that we got a red line version and made sure as we adopt these specific plan today that we had made sure that the changes that came in, we could kind of identify what they were. When I read through it, I wasn't quite sure on which things changed, and didn't have this version on an email version, so I could go back against the old one and check to see what had changed.
And I don't know if I actually received the updated draft of the,
It was in your packet.
It's this one right here.
because I have this one.
That's it.
Which is the one that I wrote all over before the meeting. So I don't have a clean copy.
And then.
It wasn't in my package.
You have one in your package?
It wasn't?
Yep.
I got this in my packet, which this wasn't dated. I'm
did notice there
assuming
was no
this is
date.
the most recent one, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I did notice that there was no date. However, it does say in the third paragraph. So David, does yours in the third paragraph on the first page say that a special meeting of the library trustees was held on March 13th or not?
Yes, I just.
No.
Okay, then okay. Okay. Okay, I'm making notes.
So the option would be for when it comes time to discuss the strategic plan, you guys can delay our vote for another month, and you guys can have we'll send you the marked up copy that we received from the consultants. I mean, that's definitely your prerogative. I mean, I don't know any other way of doing that.
I don't know if they did it in a
I have it.
method where they redlined it.
Yeah.
Oh,
They sent it to us, and if you recall, I asked Sue if we could share that copy, and she said, I want to clean it up so that it doesn't
Okay.
show the red lines to submit. And so I do have
Okay.
that copy.
that was right when I was on vacation.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, I just want to I just don't understand, in my opinion, just on, when people do spend hours of their free time to come to the public meeting like this one, to express their opinions to this body, and then in the minutes, it's not there. And then further, that if public officials who are reviewing our work and immediately go to our minutes to find out what we're up to, don't see what's in those minutes or what was discussed, it just is a little disturbing to me.
Let me do a suggestion that we not accept the minutes from the March 13th meeting and that we have those come back to us. I think we should still deal with the specific plan today because Ed and Jeannie have seen the red line and they can explain to us where the changes came from when we get to that part of the agenda, but hold off on an acceptance of this. I also wanted to make sure from other people who were here on 2B that those were the items that we had asked for. And I don't know if anybody had read it in terms of the budget and the asks to the city.
So you've jumped to the budget discussion versus.
No, I'm not on a
No,
budget.
I would, if
On the
you're,
minutes.
if you're suggesting, and then maybe I can put it in a motion.
Yeah.
That we table the approval of the March 13th minutes.
Yes. That is my suggestion. I think the minutes from the earlier meeting, I would move acceptance of those.
Well, can we do that as two separate issues? Because
Yeah.
I still have some questions about the
Okay.
February. So my motion is actually to table the approval of the March 13th minutes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No problem.
Okay, and so going to the February 28th minutes, I guess this is a little personal because I'm the treasurer. So it says in number 7, the treasurer's report, Treasurer Kelly gave the report. And it doesn't say here what the report was. And I feel kind of a responsibility to maybe perhaps submit a written report if it doesn't get put in the minutes. I don't know. I would suggest that, because my report was very brief, if that actually could be amended in these minutes to say what I actually said, because I think all I did was recite the numbers for the fund. Otherwise, I almost feel compelled to actually submit a treasurer's report on a monthly basis. And I don't know what the preference would be for this body to do.
I would say that the financials are always included in our board packets and their public record. So the information that you reported is in the packet and available for the public to review. But we're happy to embellish that section and add the actual numbers if you want it to be that way. It's your board.
I mean, historically, the treasurer has just reviewed the numbers as part of the capturing of the version on television. But I think that's a good idea, especially going forward. If you want to submit something to us as part of the packet and us include that, I think that's all right with me.
It's your decision. If you want us to add it in the minutes, that's fine.
I would think we'd make a motion to modify the minutes to add the report that you gave, and that we, in the future, the minutes contain that information and not require you to submit a special report if in fact the report is the budget information that we have in the packet.
Do you have some notes you'd like to or would you like to modify these now to these sets of minutes?
I probably would have to defer to whoever was taking the minutes the last time to actually put in that figure.
We can do that because we have Lisa can do it. We have the video and then we also have the financials, so we can review that
Yeah.
And just add those numbers in for you.
So that
And
would be.
revise it and-
That would be my only amendment to the February minutes.
Then, are you making a motion?
Well, if a motion is required, then I'd move that the numbers that I had submitted as part of the treasurer's report in the February meeting be included in a amended version of the February minutes.
Second. And that's with an approval of the minutes as it exists.
Yeah. And approving the minutes as it exists.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I guess parliamentary, I don't know if we needed to make a motion to modify the minutes, right? We just need to modify those and then vote on them? I
Right.
don't.
That's true.
I
You don't
think
have
that's
to accept.
Depending upon who we're following, right?
Yeah, we
Need
don't
approval.
actually have to approve the minutes, we just have to accept them. We don't have to do a motion for all the
It's
minutes.
like a consent calendar, so we just need to make that update on there. Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
All right. Added starters, we do have an added starter. We'd like, as you guys know, we just, the Measure J subcommittee met, and we have a report that we would like to submit and possibly take action today. It is on the agenda, but the action part was not. So when we get to that, if we decide that it meets our requirements, we may want to take action so that we can present to the Measure J.
And I have an additional one,
Okay.
which is that I think if we accept the strategic plan today, then we need to call a meeting with the library subcommittee of the council to present it to them, and also to discuss, I think it would be helpful to discuss whatever conclusions we come to on Measure J with them, and the budgetary issues, so that we sit down with them. And I know that they're open to doing that.
Thank you, I agree, thank you.
So
we have two
that
starters.
would be an item.
We would just modify, if you all agree, to modify 10B and 10C to not just be reviews, but to be
Action items.
actions.
Yes, thank you. All right. Anything else on the starter list? Okay. Number 6, public comments. This is our time for any member of the public who's here to make any comments. Do we have anyone who'd like to make a comment? Yes, sir. Please come forward, and we need to have you speak into the microphone so we can record you.
I just want to introduce myself. I'm Norman.
Nope.
Norman, that's right. Because we're on television.
I can't tell with hearing aids where it's coming from. My name is Norman Karuski. I am a 20-year resident of Palm Springs, and I'm very interested in all your discussions and in the strategic plan. And you'll most likely see more of me.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Norman. Number 7, Treasurer's Report.
Hi. So going to the figures that the city prepares for us, page number 1, it says City of Palm Springs Expenditure Status Report. And if you go to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th column to the right, where it says our available balance, it says $2,047,386.55. One question I do have for our director is, I know we discussed in the last meeting something about the interest that's being earned on the income, the fund itself, and I believe that was probably not part of the discussion with the city as far as the budget's concerned, but I just wanted to just follow up on where we are on that, and to offer my time to have a meeting with the appropriate person in City Hall to actually be able to come back here and make a fuller report.
Right. I have not had any new action on this, but I think that's a great idea for you and me to schedule an appointment with the finance director to go over this, because we do have a new finance director, so there was some transition happening with different employees. And so, yes, I agree with you, and I think that we should do that sometime between now and the April meeting.
Okay.
So
And-
let's do that.
And one of the items from the last meeting was to see what they're investing in at and whether we might be better off investing in ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea to start that, especially now with the strategic plan and what we have proposed ahead of us. I think it's opportune to have those conversations.
I agree.
So
you.
that concludes the treasurer's report.
Thank you.
Do we know what the period expenditures were from this?
Let's see. Last 30 days, right?
We, in the trust fund books category, that looks like the only expenditures for the month. So we purchased nonfiction books. with
Oh, okay.
that.
For $2,300.
I was just looking at the, I was more looking.
Expenditure audit trail.
Yeah, I was wondering what this
Oh.
period expenditures under total library, but that's the city's budget?
Yes, that's my general operating budget.
Okay.
A little bit of everything.
Any other questions for me and the trustees? Thank you. Item number 8 is a report from the Friends of the Palm Springs Public Library. Ms. Morrison, would you like to speak to us, please?
Sure. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
So on our recent meeting, we had just finished up Palm Springs Speaks. We don't have the final numbers. We'll probably have them for the next meeting. But we did, last year, we made $2,300 each. The Cultural Center and the library split the $4,600. This year we did considerably better, but we're not going to release numbers until we actually have all the March bills and everything, and we have a final accounting, but it's very encouraging. So that's very exciting. Also at our meeting, Jeannie gave us a list, kind of a wish list of things that she'd like to have the Friends support. And at our meeting on the 9th of this month, we're going to go through them item by item. And so we're going to do some approvals to roll out some things that we want to fund right away. The other big part of the meeting is we had a discussion regarding the foundation and having a meeting with the foundation. So we're in the process of setting up a meeting with the foundation so that the Friends and the foundation can kind of get to know each other and see what each of us is working on. That's basically it. Any questions?
Keep up the good work.
Good.
You have a book sale.
Oh, that's what that was my
yes.
highlight. And I forgot to mention the book sale.
Commercial time.
Oh, yes, time for a commercial, and that's what I always say, let's have a commercial. So our annual book sale is this Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So it starts at noon. And on Friday, you do have to be a member, but if you're not a member, we're selling memberships at the door. So we certainly hope we have a lot of people come out for that. And then Saturday, it's open to everyone. And then on Sunday is the bag sale where any size normal shopping bag, $4 for the entire bag. So we really hope to have huge sales this weekend. We're excited, so please come out and see us.
Great deal.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. So number 9 is a report from the Library Foundation. As you just heard, the Library Foundation met last week, and I have, I think, some really good news on that front. We invited several community members to join us to potentially join. I know that the month before, Norman was with us and is still considering about coming back to the foundation and participating, but we voted to bring on to the board. We actually doubled in size, which was very nice, which we really need. So we're welcoming Mr. Michael Braun, Eula Harris, Jim Cox, Ken Pengelly, and David Ingen. So they're joining us, and I think what's even better, as Nancy mentioned, we had a lot of discussion around bringing the Friends and the Foundation together, as well as the trustees, to make sure that once we have agreed on a strategic direction and what we need to do, how can we work closer together? The board decided and voted to have Nancy Morrison as president of the Friends, to be a permanent member of the Library Foundation and a voting member. which we felt is a critical step to having some say from the Friends and the Foundation and how we work going forward. So we're very excited to have her there and representing the Friends. Other than that, we really are still getting into an organization mode, but every meeting gets stronger. So David was very sorry he couldn't make it today. He's moving and a lot of other things, but so I told him I would give the report. We are trying to schedule a joint meeting between the Friends and the Foundation, and at that meeting we will probably have some sort of a facilitator, someone from the community, or we have a proposal right now for a paid facilitator, but we're hoping that person can kind of walk us through how organizations that are supporting libraries and fundraising can come together and achieve a common goal. And when we're out in the community as individual organizations, we're still speaking from the same page, and I think that's really exciting. A lot will depend upon the future direction of the strategic plan, and I think that's what we had hoped for from the very beginning. So that's really good news. Any questions about the foundation for me?
I do.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, as you accept new members to the foundation, are you asking for fundraising commitments from them?
In terms of personal fundraising, or having them participate in fundraising?
Any.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, and the reason I asked that, I've been on boards where you're asked to make a
I would
contribution
have asked
yourself.
both.
We haven't got that far, but I definitely think that's probably something that's going to come up when we start looking at that meeting together. But to answer your question, one of the things that came up in the last meeting and the meeting before is that David was very clear that those of us who are committed to the Library Foundation, those of us who have stayed, those of us who show up, must be prepared for this next phase of fundraising. And what does that look like? And I will tell you that the people around the table all shook their head and said that's what they're there for, and actually walked out pretty excited about that. Now, I will admit that it became clear from several members that we hope that we will have the funds to hire a professional to come in and help us set up a capital campaign, because none of us around that table have that expertise. But everyone agreed that once we're at that point, we're all in. We're ready to support it. Is that your question?
Your answer actually raises some questions. So none of the current foundation members has any hands-on experience in a capital campaign.
I'm sorry, yes, we do, myself included. So we have, I would say, looking around that table, 60% of them have had some experience in a capital campaign. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Others bring...
And do you have a feel for how much they've brought in their prior experiences?
I've been a part of campaigns that have raised in excess of $30 million, and some of them about the same for buildings and for endowments. I would say, so I split it up in two groups. I would say there's a group of us who have worked on capital campaigns for buildings, and then the rest of the group have worked in things like endowments, or in some cases, two of them had personal foundations. So they are actually in the process of either giving money or learning how to, or I'm sorry, experienced in reviewing gift requests, right, which we thought was very helpful as well.
Yeah. Well, I being a step away from that process, I certainly would encourage the foundation to, in its discussions with people who have personal foundations, because it's such a glaring opportunity to see if they could be the first among the foundation board members to actually make some kind of commitment, so that it encourages the other foundation members to have some kind of matching goal.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, as a matter of fact, one of our members who has been involved brought that up in one of our discussions, that it's about raising money and providing matching. His foundation prefers matching gifts, for example, and challenges. So we decided that once we know the direction of the strategic plan and we get some feedback from City Council and from the process, then we definitely will start looking at what's the next steps for evaluating, capital program consultants to help us get it set up.
Because I'm kind of interested in knowing the expertise of the foundation, especially if the foundation comes back to this board and asks us to use part of our fund to finance any strategic planning for the foundation. I think it would be prudent of us to actually have an understanding of the capabilities
Yeah.
of the existing board members to raise funds for this foundation.
In previous iterations of the foundation, I know when I joined, we haven't done that with this new group because we just met last week, but once accepted, then we post their biographies and their backgrounds to our website, and we produce a document because we have to as a fundraising board or organization of the background where they came from. So that should be available here pretty soon.
Good.
We're not quite through recruiting, so I say to anybody out there who is still interested, I don't think that I'm sure that we have too many people, but we're really hoping that we get such a diverse group from the community that, as you pointed out, has such backgrounds in all these different areas that are going to be important.
It's almost a chicken and an egg kind of situation. It's like, build it and they will come, but at the same point, you want to show them something so that those who have the ability to put into it will actually
What
be
is
there.
the overlap between your foundation and the group that's working on the theater right now and raising the money
I
for
would
the
say
theater?
there is no overlap at this point. I don't.
Are you
think-
sure of that? And
I'm thinking through the list. Because I haven't seen the recent theater list, because
I think that's just being put
It's
together.
being put together. So I don't know if I can answer that question 100%, but I can find out.
Because they're different people who do different kinds of fundraising.
Yeah.
And those are going to be two things possibly going on close to the same time.
I'll find out. So clearly, stay tuned to this space, because remember, we went from 4 people, now we're up to, 8 or 9. So we're very happy that we've got people who are saying up front we're ready to work, and also are excited about the direction of the strategic plan. A lot of these people were actually there that day that we had the off-site meeting at the convention
good.
center. So they're already up to speed. They were part of this process, which I think makes it even better for us. Any other questions for me? I hope I answered those.
Mhm.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on to number 10, our legislative action. Our first item is the Wellwood patio update, so Jeannie.
Yes, I handed you a copy of the staff report that went to City Council on March 6th. So that was just the new portion that was requested, and they approved the extension of the contract. So that's where we're at really right now. They're still working on updating the information at the city level. So we're waiting to see.
Will they come back to us or to you as the client in terms of the new design?
I'm certain of it. I think that once this gets approved, then we'll start working again with Public Works and the architect to
Okay.
take all of the feedback that was given and turn it into a drawing, because there was a lot of feedback and a lot of approval, but there's no new drawings so that we could take it to bid. So that's what this is going to do.
And of course, the process has always been that once we have made we've given our feedback, we've had our meeting, so our feedback is pretty much recorded, and now the other groups are giving their feedback or have given their feedback, and so this new plan that will come back to us will reflect all those changes, and someone's going to check to make sure they're all there, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Everybody who
And
provided
does this
feedback.
go back through again, it goes back through HSPB and then Planning Commission?
I'm certain it goes through HSPB. I don't know that it has to go through Planning Commission. I think this, we didn't have to
AAC.
before. We only went to AAC as an advisory situation. It wasn't required, from what I was told. So that it was just an
I would
HSPB
assume city
certificate.
buildings don't have to go through that whole process.
I was told it did not have to do that. So we'll follow the proper procedures, of course, but I know we need to get an HSPB certificate to continue, and then it will go to City Council and then go out to bid for the project.
So according to this last page, the budget remaining, we're reflecting here that the last meeting, just so that everyone understands, in this room, we had a meeting, and we agreed that the trust fund allocation that we've had remaining still stands. We didn't give any more money to that. And the city has agreed to find the additional, $3,000. And so it's showing here where that money will go, right? In each of those items.
Right.
Does that mean that there'll be $30,000 left over?
Don't you want to guarantee it?
I don't think,
We'll
I'm
see.
not counting on that, but it looks like.
That's their estimation.
Okay. Okay. They need I'm sure, a cushion there, right?
I'm sure there'll
It's
be
a
changes.
couple years out till, or at
Yeah.
least a year out till
Yeah.
you'd get into construction.
It's
Hopefully a
been so
year out.
long. We'll see what
Let's hope in our
happens.
lifetime.
Yes.
Depends on how young you are.
I'm getting older every minute, my friend.
We'll get through your lifetime. I'm not sure about anybody else here.
Okay, so the next item, of course, is 10B, our strategic plan review. And I'm very sorry.
Pass that to David.
David.
Thank you.
Can I borrow one of
I
yours?
should have brought my laptop. I could have gone through line by line because the consultants did in fact share their notes with me because there was a lot of feedback. And I just ripped out my notes from my book and filed them away. I'm so sorry. So let's go back to the discussion we had about how can we ensure that the feedback that we received is included in this draft. What is the pleasure of my fellow trustees? What would you like to do here?
Well, I don't know, do either of you have the notes with you?
Unfortunately, I don't. And I
mean,
could, my phone is dying, or I would try to read them on my phone, but I don't think I
I'm
can
in
get
airplane
very
mode. We're
far.
not supposed to be on.
I know.
I can look and see, but I don't know. if I'll be able to
When I
find it.
looked through it, it looked to me like a lot of the stuff was included. I had a couple of questions that I'd written up that came from the meeting. And I'm not uncomfortable with what this is, but I would have liked to have seen the draft. There were two things that, I don't know, the question is, for me, I could probably go forward with this. I think we can work on it. You're comfortable that most of the comments were included?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I'm very comfortable with that because the draft that came to us from the consultants, they had highlighted the changes they had made based on the notes they had taken. And as a matter of fact, I remember asking, can we send this copy so that we make sure that, for this very reason, so I'm sorry I didn't press for that more, I should have. I think they just wanted a cleaner version to be presented. I will tell you what stands out most in my mind is, if you recall, the very discussion about making sure the plan is clear, that there is no preferred end result to a building, that it includes all the options that we discussed that day in the offsite, so they made sure that they corrected that area and defined an updated library to include all options. I know that was part of it.
For members of the audience, that's a clarification that there are three possibilities. One would be updating the existing plant so that it could function. The other would be adding to the existing library so that it functions. And the third would be a new building.
Yeah.
So there's not a choice at this point in time, just an understanding that something's absolutely has to be done.
Yeah.
And and just like what Ed was saying, when I saw the revised version, I noticed that, yes, they made the clarification about the language. Some of the things that each one of us brought up had been adjusted, and so I felt very comfortable with this document too.
Can I just go through the couple of points?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I looked at. One is under leadership. It will be led by the library's Board of Trustees and supported by the Library Foundation. And I think it should say, and the Friends of Palm Springs Library.
Can you say what page you're on? I don't
I'm
remember it.
on page 2, and it's in bold, under leadership in the first section,
Oh,
focus.
okay.
The other thing on focus, we had 1 and 2, and I thought that we had basically said something to the effect that what we wanted to make the library be a premier cultural institution in the city as it serves the needs, and I didn't see that language anywhere in here.
That sounds familiar to me, though.
And that, I was concerned that language, which I thought was one of the strongest comments at the meeting, didn't didn't make it into the draft.
Okay, let's look and see if we can find it.
Did you find it?
Right, the very first paragraph.
The first paragraph, one of the city's premier
Oh.
cultural institutions.
I think it also has to be a goal or a focus. I think the language is here, but it's kind of hidden.
So you would like to add more detailed information about how we will become a premier cultural
Well, I think it's just
institution?
Add
on
to
one,
number
2, I think it should be
Okay.
3.
Yeah.
Okay,
So that
I
paragraph
like
needs to
it.
be reworded to number 3.
I just think that it would be good to have it in the actual focus paragraphs.
We can make that change.
okay.
And the rest of it mirrored my understanding of what people had commented on.
And David, I apologize that it wasn't in your packet because that really puts you at a disadvantage to have a discussion about it.
Well,
So
it's
I'm
also-
Well,
sorry.
I can actually comment on a couple of things because I do have my copy that I actually wrote on from
Okay,
that
good,
meeting.
Good.
And one of the things that was in page 3, goal number 3, that seems to have been changed here is, oh, no, actually, I'm standing corrected. Nope, never mind. Yeah, I wish I had had a chance to look at this before.
Sorry.
We're
That was-
going to do it right, so it's no apologies needed. We can always postpone this if we feel like we need to.
No, I think with that one change, unless somebody else feels like we have changes to it, I'd actually like to adopt the strategic plan and present it to the city council subcommittee.
Well, I don't see how I could vote on this, so if you're happy with a less than unanimous vote, then that's fine.
You have to have a unanimous vote since there are only 3 of you here today. Because that's when there's, when you don't have a full complement
Possibly
of
then
staff.
what we should do,
members.
because I don't want to wait another month to do this, well, to get into summer and just lose that momentum. I think what might make sense is to have a short additional meeting to go over this so that we can move forward.
Okay. So if we're going to postpone for any length of time, then I'm going to go back to, I think we have, not I, but I think we need to go back to the consultants, ask them to provide that red line version that reflects the notes that were from that first meeting to each of the trustees, so they can see how we address those.
And we can update our minutes.
And then we
To have all
update
the
these changes that
conversation
have
and
just been
com-
brought to us. I would say that would require, however, at the next meeting, another review period, which means that we probably can't vote then either. Because if you guys have changes, we'd have to make those changes at that next meeting. So it's still,
Is it possible to get the notes, the red line notes, to each of us?
definitely, but I don't know if we can, once you see those, we would have to come back together in a formal meeting, vote on this, but if you saw this and said, I want changes further, I think that we're still, where we are. We'd have to have another meeting to review those. Continue to change, it's gonna mean it's gonna push it out, I guess, is what I'm saying, which is
Well,
fine. I mean, I think
I
we
was
have
going to suggest that if you do the special meeting, you would have to agree at that meeting to accept whatever changes you come to at that point. And then we would just take your changes and forward it on. So
Right.
you wouldn't get to see it fully written before the city council subcommittee or whichever.
That's, I mean, if we understand it.
The
How would that
interesting
work,
thing,
though?
just so you, let's think about this differently, about the strategic plan. The next step is once you all agree, the consultants actually work to make an implementation plan. So it's not that we just take off running in a month. We still have to do the implementation plan, which can take some time. And then they work with us to do that. That's right, correct? And then,
Right,
So
but we
then we
still
do the
want to
implementation,
present
so.
something to the city council subcommittee to get support from the council for this. So I think it's important that we figure out how to move this forward. I understand there would be an implementation plan.
So I
But-
think whichever way you decide is going to be
So
okay.
here's what I'd like to propose for us then, is that we will ask the consultants to share their red line version, by the way, just to keep us moving, reflecting the changes you've made today, or the recommendations.
Right.
So that when you get the next draft, it will be highlighted, the changes that were made from the notes and from the meeting that we had before. So you would review that. We would
Right.
come together for a special meeting to review it one more time. If you guys have further changes, I think we have to discuss them there, don't we? Or can we give them back to we can't do them in,
I think you would
without-
have to discuss and decide at that
Openly.
meeting.
right?
Yes, I think
Yeah,
so.
we have to. I mean, I would not want us to make any changes and vote on something that hasn't been discussed openly, for lots of reasons. I mean, this is such a critical project. I would hate for someone to say, well, I didn't know that you decided to do that. If that makes sense. So I think that let's get it back in front of you guys for review. One more, let's say this is one more round of edit that you guys would put together. It comes back to us in a special meeting. Hopefully, we can accept it at that meeting, but if there are further changes based on that meeting, then it'll be postponed to our next regular scheduled meeting.
I just want to understand, though, because I don't want to get too much into the weeds on this document, especially if there's more important documents to go forward after this document. So realistically, when, and I'll rely on people who've actually been presenting things to the city council longer than I have, what is it that the city council needs in terms of, at this stage, to move forward on what I think right now is really just a preliminary discussion? I mean, I don't think there's anything in here that's going to be a surprise to anybody.
Clarify this for me, staff. I mean, I think that if we were to accept this today and had our meeting, city council may have further changes as well. I mean, they may see something here. They can have input into this as well.
That's true.
So I think that we have to understand that whatever we give them is our approval, not necessarily their final approval. Because they could see this document and say, I really think that you're off base here, that leadership should be city council as well as the Friends of the Foundation. I mean, they may want to add things to this plan beyond
that-
what we've done.
That was part of the purpose of sitting down with the two city council subcommittee members, people who've been following this and who were at the retreat, so that we get a sense from them if this is something they're comfortable with. And that was my,
Yeah.
And just as an example, I don't think that this would happen, but if they saw something in here that they would support financially, like enhanced services to teens, they might say, we don't care about teens, but that's not true. And they might say, we're not going to invest any money in a teen area or tween area. They might say, oh, we can't afford that, but I don't see that happening.
so
I think our best position is to get this to where the four of us feel this really does reflect hard work on all of our parts, all the people that had input, the community so far, so that we do sit across the table from the city council members. We can say, here's the process we followed, and we're giving you this document because we feel that this is where we want to go.
or alternately, do it at our next meeting, but meet with the city council subcommittee in the interim and also get their input. They said that they thought it had to be a public meeting that they were having,
Yeah,
not a subcommittee meeting.
we
Or
might
no,
need
I don't know.
clarification from
That's
them.
possible, and it wouldn't be a big issue to do that, just scheduling. And we could do it at the same time. Maybe it could be a special meeting for you all and
And
a
with them
subcommittee
on
at the
this.
same time as a
Yeah.
public meeting.
That makes sense. to
Because your
me.
meetings are public when you have a special meeting anyway. So
Yeah.
it's just working out the schedule to see if everybody's available at the same time. That could be a challenge. But I think that would be the better solution. And I do want to mention also, I don't know this, but I'm wondering if the consultants would charge us additional fees to have one more round of feedback.
I
But
don't-
they might
I don't
not.
think they will.
Okay.
I mean, we're not talking about a major rewrite, we're talking about, first of all, them
Another phone
providing.
conference.
Them providing their notes from the first, because I do remember they had it highlighted, right?
Right.
If they start there, make these changes that have been suggested this morning, share it with us, at least then we can all feel like what we heard at the last meeting has been addressed, which is ultimately what we want to say here. Hopefully, we'll say yes, and then we're ready to have that special meeting
Right.
to approve it, and then have that meeting with city council. That's our ultimate goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My fear is that if you guys get it and go, whoa, wait a minute, we're missing a really big section, but we need to make sure it's all there. Is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, it looks to me like it's there from the meeting, but I just, not seeing the comments.
When it gets my better judgment, I'll never do that again, I promise. Because I should have sent that on. But we'll take care of that. All right, so,
We need to schedule a special meeting, or do we
Yes.
need to, or do you need me to go back and coordinate that offline and we will, or do you want to talk about dates now, or do you
I
want to
think
think about it?
let's look at dates now, so that we can get that done.
Well,
and-
can I make
If
a
we're gonna-
suggestion?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the last time we looked at dates individually and set something, we got negative responses from our council people.
They were busy and,
So maybe
Right.
we should start there first.
I'm talking
Yeah.
about the meeting for us to review it, not the council.
Well,
just-
Oh, I thought
because
we were gonna-
Jeannie had suggested doing that together.
Yeah.
And
You
we
could do
could,
it all at once.
because then it will be a public
Okay,
meeting.
so then you go back and work on that, see how soon you can get the two of them in the same room
are there any
with us.
days of the week that are better for you all?
I'm here all April, so I don't.
Do you have any dates that you're out of?
Yeah, well,
I
I
can-
asked for the meeting, our next meeting to be April 18th because I won't be in town after that, so.
Okay,
um,
and, okay,
And I
Maybe
can
the
work,
fall,
I can work
18th.
my schedule
okay.
around.
Or maybe it's just the 18th, that's only a few weeks away, it's so soon. We'll,
Let's see
that's a
what you can
Measure
do.
J meeting, so,
See what you can do.
okay, I will,
And I'll be happy to help you with
yes,
getting that markup copy, okay? I know I have it.
I'm sure I do too,
If you need me to help you with sooner, I'd be happy to.
please do.
Thank you. That's what this is all about. We're gonna make sure it's done right the first time.
We want to keep the momentum
Absolutely.
going.
10C, as you guys may recall, maybe it was your first meeting, Mr. Gray came before us and talked to us for the second time, I keep saying, about the Measure J funds that have been set aside for the library. And we decided we would form a Measure J ad hoc committee. That committee would come together, review the existing allocations, and come back with a recommendation for us today on how we'd like to reallocate those funds in light of the strategic plan and the direction we're going with an updated library. So with that introduction, I'm going to ask Jeannie maybe to just restate how we got to where we are, and then Kathy, if you would like to talk about what we recommended. You are the chair of
Sure.
that committee, right?
Yeah, I am
So,
the chair.
I provided you with a handout to recap the information that Measure J presented to us, that there are two categories of funding already approved and set aside for Measure J. The first one was library planning for $125,294, and then the library infrastructure Phase 1 at $497,789. So the two funds equal $623,083. And the whole history,
That's enough. Let's let Kathy
Okay.
talk about the meeting.
There's your
What-
report.
What came in the consultants, both the consultants' recommendations and the review, is that we need more meeting rooms. And we walked through the library looking at the possibility of doing space revisions in the actual library and realized that anything that we wanted to revise there would automatically involve air conditioning, electricity, and other issues that would get into the whole issue of the difficulties of the infrastructure of the building. So the suggestion we came up with was to free up two of the areas that would be meeting rooms by by asking to spend on, for the additional meeting rooms to refresh the Frey building, so that that could be used for putting two of the functions off-site, freeing up, and you can describe the actual rooms that we're freeing up. One is an archive room, and the other is the room that has, that allows you to
Scanner.
archive, right?
Yes, so we have, in looking at the, yeah, hand out extras, that's fine. In looking at our existing space, and we walked around and we said, oh, this one, maybe we could build some walls and make some study rooms. We were right, you said, what's in this room? And this is where our accessing the past scanner is. It's actually a former office. It has 2 walls of windows, glass windows, and it is probably the size of a room that would hold a 6 to 8 person board table. It's an okay sized little office. And then the room right next to it is where we keep our archive and our periodicals, our newspapers, back issues, and historic items. And that room is, I meant to measure it and I forgot, but that room is a nice little room that could probably hold a 20-person classroom, or could be subdivided with a partition or something like that for classrooms, book club, friends meetings, AA meetings or whatnot, literacy, tutoring sessions, all these different ideas, tween activities,
Right,
teen
so-
activities. It kind of, it's already there. The air conditioning's there, the lights are there. These rooms are already built.
And so they're built, and if we can move some of those things to the Frey building, the exciting part of the Frey building is that it will have 2 bathrooms that can be up and running and actually work. And that would be really exciting for the library. It has space where we can put the archives and the other materials, and it also has a conference, the possibility of an additional conference or meeting space. That building, as we walked it, looks like, and I could be wrong, it's structurally intact on the exterior. Historically, it hasn't been modified, except that some bad things happened to the front windows, and those could be put back in, and there's the need for light. And that on the interior, without getting into historic renovation, we could update the interior. Right now, it has probably the worst paneling I've ever seen.
That's true.
But it could be updated and it could be utilized. It belongs to the library, and it would allow some additional functionality for the library in this period. And it would also, if we're either moving to a new library or renovating the existing building, give some space that would allow for transition space. So it fits into the plan, fits into the current concerns of residents that we have no meeting room, without cutting up, prematurely cutting up the existing building. I think that that could be a mistake. We could find that we'd gotten into a really big mistake and get the meeting spaces we need. So for Measure J, that building is one of our asks. We will probably, if we get there, we would be asking the Friends to help us with furniture for the meeting rooms and some other things there. And for the, hopefully for the historic community, you would be pleased that the Frey building actually isn't closed down and might be functional. But we're putting about half of the money into that, knowing that it might cost more, and we don't know yet what it's going to cost to do that. And keeping half of the money for the public evaluations of the 3 options. And some of that work's been done, including things that I just saw for the first time, which was a renovation and build-on proposal that came from 5 or 7 years ago. A lot of things have been costed out, but costing out the alternates, really figuring out what we need. And we thought that the 300,000 is probably rock bottom minimum for what it's going to take for a consultant to work through that with us. So I don't know what people if this is enough to go to you guys with on Measure J.
And
And
David,
what
you're
your
welcome to
response
step
would
up if
be.
you'd like. I took over. Sorry.
Oh, that's fine. David knows the drill. He can come up and join us.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is David Gray, and I represent the subcommittee of Measure J. Unfortunately, our 3 other commissioners who are on that, Jeffrey Bernstein, Michael Johnson, and Brian Robin, are not able to make it at such short notice today. You might be confused why there's more people on the subcommittee, but Measure J is a 9-member board, and therefore, when we received our new commissioners, the subcommittee was reconfigured, and so we now have 4 people on each of our subcommittees. I don't really have a lot of questions. I think, obviously, since library planning was already in our budget, that if you're asking us to increase, take some money from one line item and move it into that, I don't see that that would be a problem. And the Frey building, obviously, is a new thing. However, it is listed in a long list of projects from the city that are not funded at this time. On that particular line, I believe it was around 100,000, but nobody really from the library had ever made the request. It was sort of coming from the city just to make sure that they knew that the building needed some upkeep. So I think that would be fine. I think what I would, if you are going to move to make this, all you would really need to do is have this memorandum be sent to our chair, Jim Gazan, and CC the subcommittee, so the 4 commissioners, and we could bring it to our next Measure J meeting, which is on the 18th of April.
Would you need one of us to be there?
Not necessarily. Obviously, if you wish to be there, you could, but generally speaking, since this is, quote, a city project, city staff would be there, so that would probably mean that Jeannie should come, but if she can't come, somebody else could come and represent. But basically, you would just kind of make this recommendation. I just need to, let you know that any changes to budget allocations would need to go back from our approval then to City Council, just so that that's the process. So you're really making a request of us, but it's not a guarantee until City Council approves the change in the budget allocation.
Right.
As you know, these were done several years ago, the city has asked us to look at all of these projects and either cancel them out, move the money to somewhere else, or do something, and that's kind of where we were on all of these projects, not just the libraries. Any other questions?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, you ahead.
So you were saying that the city council has to actually go through all of the line items, not just the library's line items. So when you were saying that we would need to approach the city council to have these numbers reallocated.
No, you wouldn't have to. Measure J would do that.
But it would probably be in that same motion that's reallocating everything else, right?
No, not necessarily. I don't know that I need to discuss all of these, but if a project is ready to move forward, basically that's what they're asking about.
We,
Because this is for the public, I don't really want to get into the other issues. I think if we make the recommendation to reallocate, then that would go back to city council right away, wouldn't it? It's not like we're waiting for all these other things.
I just think on both of these items, if you're comfortable doing it and we can get the help of Marcus and city staff on getting design and somebody in to work on the building, this is stuff that we want to do now.
Right, and I just think, I can't speak for everyone on the commission, but I think pretty much everybody on the commission has already said, no, we don't want to move the money from the library. Therefore, really all I need is a formal motion addressed and, done, but then it would need to be, you don't need to come, but if you send us something that's in writing, then we know that that's what your wishes are, and we proceed. It's not like we have somebody every meeting coming to explain why they need that. The city staff is there for that.
You may have answered my question, David, but as you know, we are finishing our strategic plan. This supports the long-term strategic plan that we're proposing. We will be presenting that plan to City Council, hoping they will support also our request for the Measure J reallocation. Getting this document, do you feel you need some more explanation around the direction of the strategic plan to explain, or is this document, is this short, sweet, to the point? Is there
No,
anything else you might
I
need?
don't think so. I mean, everyone is well aware on, I mean, I think the question will be long-term, what is the fund, what kind of funds are going to be requested, and what years do we need to start that? And therefore, that's a different discussion, but I think, I'm speaking personally here, I would think that if you have a dollar amount in mind, and it's several $million, you need to make a request of how many years you think that's going to take. And the money has to be pretty much available in other words, set aside before you can go out to bid. So in other words, if you're thinking this is going to be happening in 5 years, but you wait 5 years to ask for the money, you won't get the money. It won't work. What will work is if you have any estimates now, even if they're wildly incorrect, you need to begin to make a request. But that's a separate thing for new or renovated library programming. So, that would not be this. That's something different. But if that's really what you're wanting to do, and we are working on 2021 budget now, what year does funding need to start being set aside? In other words, the city park, many of those things, money was set aside years ago. That shovel hasn't gone into the ground yet, but there is money in the bank, as we say, that they can use. If the money is not there, that project can't move forward. City Council would have to find the money somewhere else because there's not going to be bonding.
In terms of money going forward, how big can our ask be?
Your ask can be as big as you wish to make it. City Council will make the recommendation anyway. So you need to.
So for your 2021 budget, how quickly do we need to get a request through to you?
Just a moment. I have a timetable.
Because I think that we should be looking at doing that.
Our recommendations for 2021 would need to start in July of this year. And those go to City Council in May of 20.
So by July of this year, we should get a recommendation to you or a request?
Or, I mean, we don't meet in the summer, but basically kind of, but that's, our first meetings are usually in September and October, but that's when we would be beginning to discuss 2021, not 1920. 1920 is too late.
And May is, the May date is, what's the purpose of the May date?
That's when the recommendations for Measure J go to City Council for the next fiscal year.
So, does that?
No, not this. This May's recommendations will be for the next year's fiscal year, which would be the 2021. But you're going to have to come in on 21, 22 at this point, because we have already taken all of our recommendations for 2021. So starting in July of 21 is when you want money be set aside. I mean, it'd be
Right.
great if you could do it this year, but that's not going to happen because the city council's pretty much already got their budget ready for fiscal year 2021.
So,
So,
go ahead. No.
So what that means to me is that we need to get a consultant in place for us to give us some approximations. We have old numbers. And Jeannie, is the 15 million the highest you got? That was a renovation of in 2000. It was from some of what you gave me. It was
Right.
just the renovation.
Yes, no
of-
expansion at all.
No expansion. We had a number that will now be 5 years old
Yeah.
of over $15 million.
Right, 15 million 5 years ago. So if you think of escalation, it's at least 18 million just to do the
You might
exact same
also,
project.
if you're having a meeting with your library subcommittee, say to them, are you thinking that the city is going to pay 2/3 of this cost? 50% of the cost? Try to figure out what that might mean, because obviously they're going to think, well, foundation, trustee money, fundraising is going to pick up some money. So I think you need to figure out if you're trying to strive for, let's say, $15 to $20 million, what percentage of that is city versus somebody
I think we're
else?
probably at more than that if we have to do any additions.
But,
Or-
that's fine.
Yeah.
But probably the most that, I would imagine that Measure J is not going to feel comfortable doing anything more than a 5-year plan. So, if we think we can have shovels on the ground in 5 years,
Okay.
then you need to figure out how much is that going to be per year. And we don't have that much money. So, if you say, well, we need $3 million for 5 years, I don't think that's going to happen because we don't have $15 million of discretionary money probably to do that project.
So that should be one of the items on discussion with the city council. I think you haven't had a chance to talk at all about the proposal that we made, so I don't want to assume that you agree with what we've.
No, I actually think the proposal sounds very sound, but I just want to make sure that I've got all these timetables because it seems like we were discussing a number of things. One was, I know that you were here today because we had said a few months ago that you wanted us to, by April, come up with some kind of a plan for the existing Measure J funds. So
That's correct.
Does
And
this
that's-
memorandum satisfy that for you?
Yes, it would just need to be an approved something, and it would need to be sent to the chair of Measure J.
So we
I
probably
can-
need to vote on this?
Yes, we will.
Yes.
Yes, and then
Okay.
I can revise
So then the
that.
next part of it is then the discussion about the $15 million or the $15 million renovation. That's another discussion. That's not part of this memorandum.
Correct.
That's for future things. So to get my clarification concern, because like I said, I like this plan. This looks really good, and I understand that there's a bit of urgency in getting this implemented. So I don't know whether, because when you were saying the specific dates about things that are happening in 21 and 20, whether having this approved in the reallocation means that once. Does that mean that in let's say in 12 months, 12-month span at the latest, is there going to be shovels in the dirt, so to speak?
Well, it's my understanding that if you approve this, you have the funds to hire a consultant to do a strategic, not a strategic plan, but a feasibility study. So that would be up to you to do within the next 12 months, yes. The second one would be the Frey building. That would mean that if City Council approves this, then they would then begin to hire someone to look into how that's going to happen.
Okay.
But the money would have been allocated, and City Council could then knows where the money's coming from so that they can do that. You might want to work with the my sense is that this is something that I have no idea how that project would work. I don't really know how that building's classified, what kind of process you have to go through, but at least the money would have been approved. But City Council needs to approve that ASAP so that you can begin
Plan.
to do that
Right.
in July 1st of 2019, I mean.
2019.
So, just in terms of what we're discussing here, maybe separate this into two sections. Take a motion on this so that we move this and the Board of Trustees accepts this as a request to Measure J and asks Jeannie to forward this on to Jim Kazan.
Correct, and that was all we asked you to do for the April meeting, and if you do that today, then we do not need to come back and meet with you in April.
So if I make that motion, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
It passes unanimously.
Thank
And
you.
then the second item, since you're here, is you've put us on notice that if we are going to ask for money from Measure J for 2021 and then on for 5 years to set aside for a new library, we need to get something into you by
July.
July. By the fall.
Okay.
So that's notice to us of another task that we need to keep on our agenda until we've gotten a request into you.
Yes, and that request is probably going to come via your City Council subcommittee or as
Right.
well as from you, but that kind of money really needs to come from, you wouldn't call the Measure J Commission back.
Right.
You would bring some sort of city recommendation, and that's going to come from the finance director, and we will talk
Right.
about that.
Yep,
Gotcha.
thank you.
Jeannie, do you need the names of the other commissioners?
I can get it from you.
It should be on that email that I sent.
And it's probably on the website. And
Yes, they would be on the website. So the subcommittee, as well as Jim Kazan, who's the chair.
And that's how we're going to word the motion that we're approving this and asking staff to forward the memo to the Measure J chair and Measure J subcommittee, so that it's just.
Right, and then we'll just make that report at our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
I think this is the first step, towards what we want to do. And I think that we want to be really clear to our community that this includes responding to what we heard from them in that meeting and trying to meet the needs of the community and some of the program changes, which I think is really exciting.
And the goals, the meeting rooms would be for the veterans groups that want to meet, AA, alcoholic, all of
Anybody.
the various groups
That's great.
that have asked about meeting space.
So many people that come and ask, do you have a meeting space? I'm sorry, we do not. And so it seems silly.
Good. Thank you.
I have a question for the director too. So the next, when we were discussing having the next meeting, which was a special meeting or might actually be our regularly or next scheduled meeting.
Right.
That in inviting our city council representatives along is, I think I heard a suggestion that part of the agenda be a discussion of a future ask from Measure J, this 2021 thing. So I just want to make sure that gets on the agenda.
Do you need to do that at a special meeting, or if, let's say that your April meeting ends up being a special meeting and a regular meeting. I guess we should talk about that. Maybe we'll just do 10D. and
I think the meeting with the council, Jeannie, has to be done, the two council members, has to be done at their pleasure. So
course.
whether that's our meeting, our general meeting, or it's a different meeting, that needs to be set up with them so that they can attend.
Of course, yes, absolutely.
And I think we have to look to them to answer, I think, David, is that at that meeting, they will clearly understand what lies ahead. And if they are on board with whatever the updated library looks like, I think we have to ask them, how can we pull together a number to respond to the fall deadline, and what are the next steps in the feasibility
Right,
studies?
and what will they support and what do they understand?
I think we have to get direction from them at that time, because we all think we have a number, but we don't have that number until we hire someone to help us figure out that number.
I have 4 items for their agenda. One would be the strategic plan and presenting it to them. The second is your current budget, so that if there are any asks that we need to make on your current budget, those things that came from our last meeting, that we discuss that with them. The third is their support, telling them what we're doing with the Measure J money, and their request for their support for the $323,000 that would go toward the Frey building. And then the fourth is how much do they anticipate the city would put in, and their support for an ask for Measure J.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, in my mind, the business that we need to conduct with them.
And I think in that order.
Yeah.
That order. Yeah, because I think then that's gonna tell a lot of us on what we have to do next. I think we
Yeah.
have to get a start somewhere. Agreed.
Sounds good.
So.
David, does that meet your request?
Yeah.
Sounds
Yeah.
like it's
Thank you.
perfectly.
Thank you for doing that.
So I think,
Agreeable.
I think D is pretty much, we're all agreed that we're gonna try to have this meeting and these next steps done by the 18th, if staff can somehow figure out how to make that happen.
Magic.
And then we'll have our regular scheduled meeting on May 30th, if that's okay with everybody. Was that a special date you had requested? Okay, so I'm okay with those dates as well.
Let me check one thing. Okay.
Is May 30th?
Okay. I
Is
was-
that Memorial Day weekend?
It's after.
It's,
After. Okay,
yes.
good.
In May, we're very lucky that we have 5 weeks available. So the May 30th date is the 5th week of the month, and this room is available. So we can book this room here at May 30th for City Hall. Now, April 18th is Measure J's meeting in here, so we have a conflict. But Julie she checked the community room at the library, the TLC, and it's available.
Okay.
So we could meet there
Perfect.
if you wanted to do that. And
And
so if you want to do those dates, we
But
should just
would our
say
city
we're
council
gonna do them.
members possibly be at
Well-
that Measure J? That's the only thing. Would they be at that meeting potentially?
I'm not sure if they are, I don't know who's how they have a liaison
Right.
like we do. I don't know who that would be.
You may need to check on that first, don't you think?
Sure.
we could also meet earlier that day if this room was available, if that works for you.
Yes, we would have to check the schedule, and we do computer classes on that day at the library. But we could check it out. Wellwood is an option too, if we had to go over to Wellwood.
The only other thing I was going to
That's
say
available.
was that if it turns out that we have to have another meeting earlier than April 18th, I mean.
We could do that, too.
I mean, is there any reason that we would have to meet on the 18th at all then? I mean, if we get all our business done, then we could conceivably just cancel the 18th meeting.
It depends if that's a special meeting or if it's our regular meeting.
If there's enough notice, it can be the regular meeting. And usually we have plenty of notice on that.
Well, let's work on that, I agree.
Yeah.
So
I
can you,
like that, too.
can you check with the city council
Yes.
liaisons to see what their availability, let's start there. And then based on that consensus, then run that by all of us to see if that's okay with us. And, of course, assuming the gods of the location rooms and all that sort of stuff comes together.
Yes.
And you can say that we're gonna have that meeting. We just know the 18th is the last day we can do it because we'll be down one person. Okay. Is that okay with
And-
everybody?
Yeah, the only reason I would prefer not to do the 18th at that time is if Measure J is meeting, you're going to need to be there, is
Well, I
what he
think-
just said.
He said it's optional, but or some city staff could go. Maybe it could be Marcus or
It's
someone
just
else.
if we're presenting our
Mhm.
program, it's stronger if it's coming from us.
I agree
Sure.
with that, but I did get the sense that he didn't think it was
Necessary.
necessary.
No, and David Gray was on the library board for so many years that.
Okay.
One of us will be there if we have to be there.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think, yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I will look at it and see if there's anything else that we could do.
Let's get our meeting scheduled first, and then we can see. I agree
And
that
May
if I'm available, I'm
30th.
happy to step in.
Yeah.
So,
So April's to be determined, and then
May's 30th
May
is
is
good.
May 30th.
Right,
I like it.
good. Anything else on 10D? 10E. So I think you heard us mention that at the Friends meeting, as well as the foundation, I went to both those meetings and presented to them, to both groups, first of all, the idea of having a joint meeting, and actually including the trustees as well, especially once we have all the things we've just talked about starting to take shape and we know what lies ahead for our fundraising group. We would love to be able to say that we know how much money we have to raise. I don't think we're there yet. But at least each of these steps along the way, having these groups come together and be informed, knowing what the next steps are, I think would be the first major step. But more importantly, it's having the groups come together to be on the same page and the same message. And the strategic plan should be driving that. That's why we've all come together to work on that. That was the goal of that. But just having a meeting where we all can talk about that. And everyone was definitely open to that. I also presented, just so you know, based on some feedback that I got from the consultants from the day session that we had at the convention center, was having them facilitate a meeting about how friends, foundations, and trustees come together and work when faced with a capital campaign, raising a lot of money, developing a program like we have ahead of us over the next several years, and discuss a possible merger of Friends and Foundation, how they might come together as one organization or under one umbrella organization. And just so you know, the Friends were, I think, open to a discussion, and said, okay, we're happy to come together and talk. The foundation, quite contrary, that they were not really in favor of creating another organization. So as I reported, their response to that was, why create another organization when we can just have the Friends represented in the foundation? So I think they want to give that a try. Please come forward.
And the Friends also feel,
Push your button there.
yeah, and the Friends also feel there is no necessity of merging.
Okay.
They agree with what the foundation says. And as we discussed at the foundation meeting is, because one of the big things is we don't want to be going after the same people for donations, but we really don't, as we discussed at the foundation meeting, because the foundation for the capital improvement is going to be looking to people for large donations, where the source of the money from the Friends is basically, we sell books for $1, CDs for a couple of dollars, DVDs, and that's really where we get the majority of our money. We also get money from selling our memberships, and now we're getting, we did quite well this year and last year from the modernism events, and also from Palm Springs Speaks. And then we do sometimes have people who pass away and leave us money in their wills, and sometimes, like we have one right now that we're spending the money on, Palm Springs Speaks, is they left it only to be used for programs. So that's how they designated it. We have another one right now that is open to anything, so we're gonna use that money to fund a lot of Jeannie's wish list. And I mean, we really are very excited if the Frey building gets updated, because we would really like to put a bookstore in there. because we make quite a bit. Last month, we made a couple of thousand off of book sales, but one of the reasons, like we had talked about, paying for a consultant to come out and, do this presentation, and our share was gonna be, I don't know, $875, but to us, that's 875 books we have to sell just to pay for that. That's why we really wanted to do somebody who wouldn't charge us.
I will say that from my years of working with Friends Foundation and Trustees and working at the national level with them, I am satisfied with where we are right now. My concern came from having multiple groups, including this group, out in the community, not on the same page, saying things that are based on our best knowledge, but I think we all need to make sure we're saying the same thing, because it's what we're about to go through. The community is very sensitive to all the things we're doing, and they love the library, and I don't want anybody misstating something that we don't even know yet, right?
Right.
So I am satisfied from my perspective if we can come together as a group that will be responsible for raising money and agree that here's our common goal and here's where we're going. I think that what we're going to find in some of those things, and what you just shared with me brings it home to me, is that when we have a strong foundation in this community, a library foundation, some of the examples that you just cited are, the foundation is going to be out there going after those gifts as well. And I think we all have to agree what goes where, because, we have members of the community who might want to give a lot of money, but they want to make sure the endowment is established, it's a foundation. I mean, there's all kinds of things that we have to look at, not just because they choose, it's because which organization is better organized to take those kinds of gifts. So I think that we all have to agree that that's why we hired the professionals to come in and help us develop what that looks like. And I think that we're on our way. I mean, having you at the foundation meeting will be a strong indication of us working together. And I feel very welcome to come to the Friends as well, so I think the foundation feels that way too.
Right, and we, that's why we strongly agree that somebody should be at all the meetings. So if one of us can't attend, somebody else would come in our place, because we want to make sure that we go back and tell everybody what has been said, so that everybody is on the same page, so that we don't want mixed messages out there either.
Right.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, so I think that we all agree, well, I should ask, I mean, is there anything about this that concerns the two of you? But it really is trying to, I don't want us to wait until someone looks at us and said, okay, go raise money. We need to be organized now, because the whole process has got to be in place, because we can't wait. And that could be as simple as we all agree we're ready to go. And who knows, we might have some initial gifts that come our way that help us get kicked off. So I think that we just need to be ready. So is there any thoughts, suggestions, comments from the two of you about this discussion and kind of where we are with this?
No, but I think it's good that the trustees are part of that as well. I think it's good that the trustees are a part of that
Absolutely.
Conversation.
Absolutely.
So that we know what's been discussed, and I think the community can be confused about where gifts go.
Yeah.
Or who does what with what money.
And we can't let that happen.
Nope.
Yeah, it's got to be very clear. Yeah, thank you. David, anything from you?
No.
Okay. All right, I think we're on our way. So report from staff representatives.
Okay, great. And let's see, you made me think of something too about us having a good message. And I think at our last the meeting, we talked about budgeting, and we've talked about an awareness campaign. And Julie has done some research, and so she does have some information for you. So if you want, she can give that to you now to look at and review for later, and we could put it on an agenda. I'm not sure what.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I forgot, I'm sorry. We had before us last time the trust fund budget for the next year. And I think what we had talked about was how we're going to support implementing some of the strategic plan earlier rather than later if we had to use trust funds. So that's what you're talking about, right? So do we want to
Yes.
have that discussion now as part of our regular legislative action, or should this fall under staff presentation? I should have thought about that. I'm really sorry.
I think there's no emergency. I think that you all approved it with a proposal.
Right.
So as long
Correct.
as we provided a proposal, it was already technically approved.
Okay.
So
Are you
I-
responding to that
we
proposal
do have a
part now?
proposal,
Okay, good.
if you want it. And so there's no action necessary because you already approved it.
Okay,
So did you bring it?
we're all ears.
Do you want me to do it now, before your report?
Let's do it now. Let's just do it
I'm
now.
sorry.
No.
It probably should fall under legislative action anyway, right?
Well, I didn't put it on there, so.
I didn't think about
Why
it.
don't we do that in the future, that anything that comes under the budget that was supporting
Oh,
the
of course.
strategic plan
Yeah.
would be a legislative
Yeah.
action.
Yeah, and this did just come up. So we thought rather than wait an entire month, we could just at least let you see it and think about it. Because we're getting such good momentum and that we want to keep things rolling. So Julie will be happy to tell you all about it.
Thank you. All right, so the proposed campaign that I have submitted to you is based on the initial budget that we discussed of $25,000. So the goal is to inform the community of all the resources and services available at the Palm Springs Public Library with your library card, to grow awareness and familiarity with the library and build a foundation for any upcoming building project communication. So it's really the before all that's happening. So I've broken it out into different sections. So we discussed having a consultant to follow city guidelines, to process and engage a local advertising and marketing agency to assist us with a campaign, the concept and then creation. There's promotion that we would do, and I'm proposing downtown banner, working with the chamber with email blasts, social media from the library as we already do, in library, and then outreach to local groups. And I go into that a little bit more later in this. Then paid advertising sections. There's different media outlets I'm proposing. Radio, doing 2 weeks at a time, 3 times. I've given you some of the breakout. Where I'm kind of focusing is on this particular station I've been working with our representative at Alpha Media, and targeting a certain age group because we're trying to reach the people that we don't reach regularly now. And so that's where I'm proposing that. If you turn,
Are the radios Spanish as well as English?
they do have some Spanish speaking. Is her mic on? Yeah.
Be sure to keep your microphone
Yeah,
on.
go ahead. Yeah. I will make a note of that and make sure that they do have those stations, though, Spanish-speaking stations available as well. Online ad banners with Palm Springs Life and the Desert Sun. So in this particular campaign, I'm proposing a month-long campaign with Palm Springs Life and a 3-month campaign with Desert Sun. Doing some on-screen slides at the Camelot Theater. I really want to do bus. So I've done 2 different mechanisms for bus. One would be on actual buses on particular routes and that we would determine through that process. And then also at shelters, again, focusing on some of the most populated stops. And that information comes to me from Sunline. So again, working with their representative to figure those places out. And that also might be part of what the consultant helps us do. And then doing some miscellaneous print, so information flyers, possible giveaways that would coordinate with the concept, and banners inside the library, and things that we would take with us when we go out to do some of the outreach and promotion during that targeted time frame, and then in-person community group presentations. So in a nutshell, the recommendation is for basically 90 days of activity. Some things are only a month long, and some things would span the whole 3 months. So very targeted time frame. And I am proposing the timing of the fall. So basically launching the campaign in September and going through November. And depending on timing, it could possibly even go into starting at the beginning of October, going into the end of beginning of December, depending on but I am proposing a 3-month targeted campaign. And the reason being is, number one, we have to have time to engage with the consultant, come up with concepting for a campaign and get all the materials ready. But then most importantly, depending on the progress of the strategic plan and the building committee, I want to set a good foundation so that the communications from the building committee, when it goes out to the community, they would already know and be aware and plugged into the library, hopefully. And so then the next conversation is about whatever the building might be.
Do you, political campaigns right now basically use a lot of Facebook ads where you buy and boost ads? I didn't see that in your breakout budget, but the boosting of ads to people who use Facebook.
Yes, so we do library social media, and that we definitely do have boosted ads and things like that. The boosting is a very low monetary amount, and so that is something definitely we can incorporate into the budget. I did not call it out here, but I did call it we would be doing social media, so that's definitely something that's possible to include.
And then the radio I really like, but I did a lot of work with the district campaign, and when we went into, like Catherine Finchy, the parents asked, why don't you put things on the bus stops or on the buses? That's really where we get our information, and nobody notices us. So I think the focus on the bus stops is really good for the population that we might not be reaching. The other is, none of this looks like it's geared toward the schools, but I'm assuming your school students are part of your part of the population you want to stay in touch with.
Well, we do stuff already with them that's no cost.
Yeah, so we are part
Low.
of their program, and they allow us to do promotional flyers to this through the online school system. So we are already part of that. So that would be some stuff that we already do, and it's free to us to participate in. So it would not be something that we would pay for, and would be included as in the flyers that we're creating for promotion when we go out to any group. And those are done in English and Spanish, just to clarify.
Okay.
And I would like to also add that when you all participated in our strategic planning retreat, and I gave my presentation about all of the things that we have to offer at the library, and I said, how many of you learned something today? There were so many hands raised, and so we, I think that I'm preaching to the choir, but we do have so many wonderful things that we already do. And people say, oh, I didn't know that you had this, or I didn't know that you did this. So.
People really don't know the digital stuff you have.
So there's a lot of information, a lot of great things that we already do, and we think that this is going to be a perfect, it's not that we have to sell something new, we just have to sell what we already do.
September or October your better start, and with bus ads, you might be competing with candidates on bus ads, so you might want to think about, if you're putting them up and somebody buys an ad, it only stays up for a month, but if you put it up and the campaigns are over, your ad might stay up for a year.
True.
Because they don't replace them often, so you might want to give thought to where you're, the ads on the bus I don't actually know about, but I know the bus stop ads.
Right. You are correct in that we would be competing with some of the campaigns, Yeah, I mean, I think there's some opportunity for both of us, since it's not as many positions and things going on, but definitely something we could consider, and if we feel like we want to push it out. I think initially when I was working on this, I was trying to keep in mind what would be happening next steps with the building committee, in the strategic plan, and then communication starting in 2020. So I wanted to have a good foundation established through the awareness campaign before you went out, but I mean, it's definitely fluid. This is a proposed, timing, but if we determine we need to push it out just a little, we absolutely could do that.
And September, October, which I'm assuming you're not going for the out-of-town people if you're doing September or October. Our part-timers come back at the end of September.
Yeah. So that's actually partially why I was proposing a 3-month campaign, because obviously I want to appeal to people who live here and in our community and use the library and should know what's going on. But then as the snowbirds and other visitors start to come back in October, the campaign would still be going on. And so we would capture some of those people that are returning as well. So that was the whole idea. I didn't want to just do like a 1 month or something. I felt like it really needed to be a 3-month concentration.
I think this is great.
As someone who has to spend a lot of money every month on advertising, I have to say again, looking at this, you're taking a small amount of money and doing a pretty amazing job with this, because I think this really shows what a little bit of, well, $25,000 can get us a lot.
Yeah.
You did a great job on this. I also wanted to say that this is the first step, as you pointed out. I think that we're gonna have to come up with more money as time goes by to educate the community through our marketing and awareness, so I think this is a good step. I'd like to give you some feedback from the foundation, which, by the way, I will tell you up front, probably has nothing to do with what you just presented to us, but it's something that they gave me the other day. They all thought, I actually have to say that the meeting that we had at the convention center got more people excited about the potential of what we can do in this community. The question from them is, why wasn't that just told to everybody that we were doing it? Why wasn't that in, everyone thinks, why wasn't that in the Desert Sun? Now, I understand that you pick when you release those kinds of things, because you don't want to build excitement and then you let them down, I got that, and that's how I responded to them. But I would say going forward, as we start having more concrete steps with knowing where we got to go, where is that appropriate to come from? Is that something that you're expecting the foundation to pay for, or is that something that you think that you will do from a city department? I think we need to be thinking about that.
So to clarify, so you're talking like press releases and
Correct.
things showing activity. Yes, absolutely. That is something I have done in the past when we did other things.
Right.
It's just that, yes, but it's definitely something it'll come from us. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Because at some point, it steps into fundraising and
Absolutely.
awareness, right? So I think
Yes.
that, that lies ahead in this process. That's where the consultant will help us figure that out. But I think that, this is the first step of many to come.
And we have talked about actually when strategic plan gets approved, we would do a press release at the
Good.
time and
Very
say
good.
it's posted and check it out, and here's the first step and multiple to come and so on. But given where we were, that didn't seem appropriate at the
No,
time.
thank you. I'll report that back to them when we meet again.
Sure.
I just want to say, yes, that I agree with Ed about that 25,000 seems awfully cheap for all of that's in here. If you can do all that on that budget, that's amazing. I want to also highlight the fact that I think it's very important to work within the in-library promotion, which you put in here, because one of the things I've been noticing, and I hope at some point, I know in the February meeting, along with the strategic plan, there was this document called Palm Springs Public Library Assessment that was also part of it, and I hope at some point we get a chance to discuss this, because it actually had some things that I think relate to what marketing could actually do to improve things like library attendance, both at the main library and at Wellwood. The other point I wanted to make was that I think, as we noted in the convention center meeting where we had members of the community there, that there were a lot of opportunities to collaborate that were not being utilized. And I think this marketing plan should have some more collaborative elements to it. For example, Ed just mentioned that the foundation would probably want to raise a profile of the library at some point, and so there should be some thought and planning in terms of our marketing budget here is where that's going. I think there's, as Nancy had reported for the Friends of the Palm Springs Library, they're having a more robust program for their speaker series, and there's no reason why we can't promote or help with the promotion of that as part of promoting the library in general.
And we do that.
Yeah. So I think that should be, those collaborative elements should actually be in your plan, because I think there are some other opportunities as well. I think the people from the Boys and Girls Club actually said at some point during one of our group meetings that there were some things that the library was doing that they were doing, and they wanted to work with us. So maybe as they're promoting those programs, we should be looking for opportunities to market that to the public as well.
And we got really excited at that retreat because we were passing out business cards.
Right.
Oh, we could do this together, and it was really, finally, we've been saying, you know, we say that all the time, you know, oh, it'd be great to work with the schools about more and do these things. But it was so nice to have them there, to have them say, hey, we do this and we do that. And
Yeah.
All right, and to say
Good.
it back to us.
Yeah.
And they have looked to us for like key things, like Boys and Girls Club, for instance. They really love to partner with us and collaborate during the summer. But then throughout the year, maybe not so much. So it's like we don't want to be just a summer partner. We want to be an ongoing partner. And so for them to say things like that to us at that was great. So definitely we want to capitalize on it. So I hear what you're saying. Thank you.
Can I have a motion that we accept this plan from Julie and that?
can you do that?
It's
We don't-
using money, right? Do we have to do that?
Well,
You already allowed
you
it.
already,
We already-
well.
we already have.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
We allocated it, but we also said we would accept proposals.
So
I
it's
think-
not on your agenda, and it's not urgent, is it?
It depends on if the timing, if we.
Let's put it on for the next meeting for us
Yeah.
to accept the plan.
That's what I put on here, to add
Is
it
is there
to,
another proposal from someone?
no, that's all we have. But then
we-
I have my reports.
Well,
Let me
on
see
that,
what else we
I
have.
want to be sure that on the what we had approved, and I'm sorry I didn't bring mine with me.
It's okay.
We had, so this would address the awareness campaign, the banners, right? I think we've talked a little bit about the small meeting room construction. That's probably on hold until we get a little bit further with what we're.
Measure J.
I would
Measure
add the
J.
downtown banners, these downtown banners are a separate project.
They are?
Oh,
Then,
because
yeah.
it's summer reading and
Summer
library.
reading,
Okay.
and National
Week.
Library Week.
Yeah.
Um,
So we would need to bring that back right away.
Okay, I can bring that to the
and
next.
For the next one?
And this will come up next, that as we go through this process, the capital campaign.
I think that,
consultation.
yeah, I think getting the consultant to
Gotcha.
do our
All right.
planning
Good work.
would
Thank
help
you.
us with that. So, okay,
Thank
so back to my report.
Okay.
I wanted to let you know, the Friends, Nancy's here, yeah, the Friends of the Library received a donation from Literary Society of the Desert for $2,500. They gave a gift to every library in the valley, including College of the Desert, and they invite us every year to a luncheon. And this year Julie went as our representative, and that was really nice of them to do. They increased their gift. It was $2,500 this year. And we, working with the Friends of the Library, have stated that we would like to use that for our career online high school program because we have a matching grant situation with the California State Library, so their $2,500 turns into $5,000. So we're very happy about that donation, and we're going to use that for our adult high school diploma program. So just FYI. You will see this on new topic, new donation. You have received a donation of over $13,000 from the Hellman Estate, and it has been donated to the trust fund. And you will see that on your next month's financials, and I'll give you
Is it
that.
restricted in any way?
It is not.
Very good.
It's just a gift, and so
Do we
I.
need to make a formal thank you from
I
us?
already send a thank you letter on your behalf, on
Okay.
behalf of the library and the Board of Trustees, and I will make sure you get a copy. Every time I send a thank you letter, I try to make sure you get a copy, so I'll
Great
make sure
news.
you get a copy.
Should have started the meeting with that.
Hey, we got $13,000. So we're gonna put that in the future library projects account for you. And the paperwork has been submitted to do that. You received a flyer for our 6th annual Family Fun Fest, which is April 17th from 10 to noon. This is held every year at the Palm Springs Stadium next door to the library. It is a free event. It's a wonderful, fun event for families. We always hold it the first Wednesday of Palm Springs School District's spring break. So this year, spring break is in April. It's going to be hot. So we're looking forward to that. There are 25 organizations that are participating in this. So we're going to have all kinds of different booths, games, activities, crafts. There will be a food truck. Mix 100.5 is going to come and do a radio roadshow, which they do every year with us. It's a fun event. We use it obviously to promote the library, to provide something nice and fun for families during spring break that's free. Every child is going to get a free book, courtesy of the Friends of the Library. And we also use it to promote our summer reading program. So it's a great way for us to get the word out that summer reading is coming. Here's our schedule.
How attended is it?
Oh, we have anywhere from 500 to 800 people.
Wow.
It's a good event. 800 is probably the most we estimate. Big crowds. Yeah, we have big groups. The summer camp, or the spring break camps come, the camp kids, all kinds of groups. It's fun. So you're invited to come and take a look. And the Friends will be doing a bag sale that day too, so there'll be a book sale as well. Speaking of spring break, spring break for Palm Springs School District is 2 weeks long. So we also provide activities for children. We do spring break crafts. They'll be at 1:30. It's in our schedule. 1:30, right? It's a timed event, or is it just wild? Open, wild and free. Why do I say 1:30? Okay, just drop in crafts. So check our schedule. Check our website, palmspringslibrary.org, for details. And we like to do a Dia de los Niños event every year, Day of the Child, Day of the Book. And this year we are doing it on the day of the official day, which is April 30th. We are having a performer, Wacko the Magician, come at 6 o'clock. And then we are also giving away free books, courtesy of the Friends. And we've also applied for a grant. If we get the grant, then every child's going to get the same book. So it's a $500 grant from the state library. So we're hopeful they say yes, because it'll be a little bit of a better book, if you will, not just a paperback. Is it a paperback? Or are they all paperbacks? Paperbacks. Well, it'll be a terrific book. It's called Book Fiesta. We hope we can give that book away. Too much information. But April 30th, come to our program, get a free book. We want to remind you as trustees that Serving with a Purpose is May 23rd. The early bird registration ends soon. That is a one-day conference for Friends, Foundation, trustees, and staff who work in libraries. So this is a library-specific one-day workshop with breakout sessions and guest speakers. And Ed, you've participated before. And
it was very good.
It's a.
Can you send that to us one more time?
I
I'm
will.
sorry, please.
Yes.
It's the Ontario Convention Center, right?
Yes, Ontario Convention Center. Lunch is included in your cost, and there's free parking, and it's a wonderful networking opportunity to meet other trustees, and they do specific breakouts. If you're a trustee, then you go to a trustee breakout. If you're friends, you go to the friends breakout or whatnot. And it's just a fun day. And then there'll be an author there too, to do an author talk. And then finally, one last thing, Neighborhoods USA annual conference is May 15th through the 18th at the Palm Springs Convention Center. If you want to participate in this, contact me, because I have a link for registration for you. We at the library are participating. We will have a booth, and we are looking for participants to help us work the booth as well. Lisa and I are going to do a presentation on Career Online High School, and then Eric Cheel and I are doing a presentation on accessing the past and researching your neighborhood's history, which we have done before in Omaha. So Neighborhoods USA is a wonderful, wonderful conference all about community resources and learning new things about how other communities are doing things. And Palm Springs has a really great representation there, and it's a great honor to have that convention here. And so our friends are going to help us with the booth too. And
Where is it?
it's at the Palm Springs Convention Center.
And the dates are?
May 15th through the 18th.
Well, let's let the booth schedule. I mean, it's right next door to it. So I don't mind walking.
Yes, I will be
Yeah.
sending you the booth schedule.
Yes, please send it to me too, because I'd
Right
both
next
like
door.
to attend and I'd like to help with your booth.
Definitely.
you.
Yeah, send it to me too.
I'll send it to everybody. I was gonna, after this meeting, and we mentioned it to the friends and you guys, I'm gonna send all one big email. The actual booth schedule will only be the 15th through the 17th, so it does not include the 18th, and only half day on the 15th. So just so you, in planning.
And Barbara Boxer is a keynote speaker, and it's included in your conference registration, and there are tours that you can visit, lots of interesting things around town. And I went to the one in Omaha, and I'm not I'm not part of 1PS or any of that activity. I don't even live in PS, or I don't live in Palm Springs, so she's frightened by my comment. But
No, I'm not.
so for me to go to a Neighborhoods USA conference was odd, but when I went as a presenter, it was a wonderful conference. You know, outside the library world to learn about other things.
I wasn't responding to that at all. What I was thinking about, and this is, and I didn't mean to interrupt your comments.
No, it's fine.
One thought is if you don't get the grant, the $500 grant, we just got $13,000. Could we do a backup for your special book for each child?
We could probably have it covered already.
But
it's
if you don't-
$500. So.
Right, but if you don't have it covered, it would be nice to have you be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, but we're optimistic that we'll get the grant.
I just have two things to add to your comments. Serving with a purpose, if you can attend that, it is a great time for us to network. Even more importantly now, I think, as trustees, and if friends can go, and I'll mention this to the foundation, we can start to connect with libraries who have been through the process we're about to go through. And I think especially in our area, knowing that we know people, they're going to come in handy because they've been this path before, and we want to know those kind of people. So I think for us to start thinking now of our networking, not because they're communities like us, but what have they done to improve their library facilities and programs, and what can we do to help that.
And it might give you some ideas on libraries to visit if you want to think about the building committee.
My next comment is that Jeannie has recently, and she probably gets this every day, but most recently she and I have been sharing some comments about programs, about buildings, and about improving facilities. And I think that it's important as we get closer, or we know where we're going, that we put some money aside for, at a minimum, you or staff should be going to some of those to educate yourself so that you know what lies ahead for your part of this process. And I know these are professionally based, libraries, and the one you sent me today is in
South Carolina?
South Carolina, which is an amazing library. They have a beautiful library, but it's a community that we could go and learn from as well.
So what we're talking about is the Library Journal, which is one of our professional library professional journals. They do a building institute, and you went to one in San Diego?
Yes, about 3 or 4 years ago.
Right. So I think they rotate East Coast, West Coast. So it'll come around again to our neck of the woods. But they do these building institutes, and then they are design institutes. Maybe that's what it's called. And they bring in architects and space planners, and then they send out a call for send us your challenge. And that's a great opportunity for us to send our challenge once we know what it is, if we're in our existing space or looking to something else.
So what do we need to put aside for costs to allow you guys to do that? I'm assuming that's travel the city doesn't pay for.
It could be. Julie went in our library budget. She went as a professional development.
To the Design Institute.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and that was when we were doing the last. So actually, the architect that we were working with was at that conference, and they talked about our project in one of the breakout sessions. So that's how I was integrated into that. So it was part of that. So it's possible.
So it could be part of our regular travel and training or conferences budget. If it's something special, and the trustees have paid for library travel before. So when they were evaluating the book sorting system, they paid for that travel. And then I want to say that they've paid for people to go to conferences when there was no money for conferences as well. So
I think
that is something
you guys
that you
should
have
be
done.
on the lookout, and you see something that comes across that you think that is worthwhile, assuming that the budget won't cover. I'd like for you to bring that to us as a possibility, because I think that's really, we want to develop you guys through this process as well.
I know that our conferences are our continuing education.
Exactly.
So firefighters might have training or recertifications that they have to do, but for library staff, we get our training from conferences. Basically.
Likewise, there could be, and I'm sure that we'll get to this when we identify consultant, there could be something we bring to us. You know, we might wanna bring something to our community that talks about, you know, how communities go through this as well, so we'll keep our ears open.
Yeah, so that was my report.
Thank
Unless
you.
you have any questions or other comments.
No.
Oh, I do have one more thing. It's kind of maybe a thing. The city is working to roll out a new mobile app. And part of that, to roll out an app, I guess, they don't have an app. Part of that, our library website is on the city's website. And therefore, our library catalog and website would be integrated into their new app. We're not sure of the timing on the rollout. It could be soon, next month or so. We don't know. But we have an existing mobile app for Palm Springs Public Library that we will be sunsetting. We won't renew our contract with them because we're going to jump on board with the city's app and see how it works. And
Wouldn't you want to keep both until you see how it works? For most people, I think if they're looking for the library, they're not thinking about going through the city.
I understand that, and the City of Ontario has the same vendor as their mobile app, and we looked at it. We're going to try it because there's a huge cost savings for us if we don't renew our app. If we decide that it's not working for us, we can always add it back. It's just a subscription-based platform. So
Who's it with?
ours is with Boopsy, which is through Demco now.
Yeah.
So it's about $6,500 a year for
You
us to
could
have a
easily go
mobile
back
app.
to that if you wanted to. I mean, they're.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just a sign up and pay. And then we're
Well,
back on.
and we would have to do a big transition anyway,
That's
because
true.
what the current, what our platform is going away within their system anyway, so we'd have to transition one way or another. So we figured we might as well transition into this city app, see how it works. We'll keep it past when the city's app goes live, because we'll keep it through this fiscal year, which we've already paid for. So we'll have some overlap for a little while.
So you can see what
Exactly.
people are doing. And
Yeah.
Yes.
that's mainly,
Absolutely.
I don't want people to lose touch with you because you've gone to a different app.
Sure. Absolutely.
Good, that's good news.
Yeah. So we're just FYI, we'll be working on that.
Anything else?
No,
City
no, no.
Librarian?
No.
Staff, anything else? All right. Anything else from you guys? Good meeting, as always. So I will take a motion for us to adjourn. No, I'm not doing a motion to adjourn. I can't
I don't
remember.
think
Am I
so.
having a brain lapse? I just adjourned. So we're going to adjourn this meeting at 5:01 PM. And we'll see you guys back here very
We're
soon.
not sure when.
Yeah, to be determined.
To be determined.
April to be determined.
TBD.
Thank you.